And while we're on the subject of election fraud, another quick thing I want to hit on real quick here. This week, it was revealed that a DOJ official by the name of Jeffrey Clark, who I believe was in the Civil Rights Division, on December 28th, he drafted a memo that he was going to send to then acting Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen and then acting Deputy Attorney General Ken Donahue. And the letter said, we're going to tell the state officials in Georgia that their election was riddled with irregularities, and therefore they need to hold a special session of Congress so that they cannot certify the results of the election and figure out how to move forward with this so-called fraudulent election. Jeffrey Clark had the memo ready. He sent it to Rosen and Donahue and said, I've got this ready for all three of us to sign here. And it's worth noting, obviously, that Clark is, an avid Trump loyalist there in the DOJ. And luckily, both Rosen and Donahue looked at this memo and they said, no, we're not doing this. This isn't true. What you're saying here is a lie. The DOJ already looked at Georgia, by the way, and we couldn't find any irregularities. We didn't see anything that raised any red flags. We're not going to sign your stupid little memo. And the reason I wanted to make sure I hit on this story today, folks, is because it does show that even if a coup doesn't work, even if it never gets off the ground, isn't it still a coup nonetheless? When you had members of the Department of Justice, and not just Clark, there were other folks in this too, that were actively trying to overturn a state's election results just to appease Donald Trump. Because this wouldn't have even changed the results of the 2020 election, folks. Wouldn't have changed it. Those electoral votes from Georgia did not put Biden over the top. And thank goodness Rosen and Donahue had enough sense to say, nope, listen, we're not going to destroy democracy for you today. We got to take another break. I'm Farron Cousins, in for David Pakman. This is The David Pakman Show. We'll be right back.